In this video, we will create the APIs for searching the users and creating the chat with that user, whether it be one-on-one chat or a group chat. We will also create APIs like renaming the group, adding and removing users from the group, etc. So I've opened our chat app over here and I'm gonna quickly go to the terminal and start our server. And I'm gonna go to our backend folder inside of routes, and let's first create the user searching API endpoint. So inside of our user routes, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come down and add another route. So router.route slash, and this is going to be a get request. And I'm gonna name the controllers all users. And as you can see, this route is already there in our list. So what we can do is we can take this .get and append it after it. So this is the benefit of writing your routes like this. So let's go on and create this all users controller. So inside of the controllers, inside of the user controllers, I'm gonna go down over here and create a new function const all users, wrap it inside of the async handler, everything, and inside of it we're gonna have our function, and this is going to be an async function. Cool. Now inside of it, what we're gonna do, so this is how this API is gonna look like. So it's gonna be /API/users or user, just like our endpoint is defined over here, and we are going to /route. So how are we gonna send the data to our backend? Now there are two ways to send it. Either we can send through the body. For that we have to use the post request, but we don't want to use the post request. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use something called queries for making this API. So how we're gonna use queries? We're gonna type question mark and we can provide the variables over here. For example, we can provide search variable over here and we can give any value to this. Let's say Piyush. So just like this. So I'm gonna demonstrate it. So what I'm gonna do is const keyword, and I'm gonna, how do we take this variable from the queries? So we need to do request dot query. So just like we, for example, if we want to take the params, so as I demonstrated in our previous videos, if we want to take a single param from our API URL, for example, if this was ID, so if we want to take the ID, we write request dot params. But if we want to take a query from our API, we write request dot query dot and the name of that query. So it's search. So let's, for now I'm not gonna write search, just write this, and I'm just gonna log this keyword. Okay, and also export this and import this over here. Awesome. Let's go to our Postman and try this out. Okay, so we're gonna create a new request over here. Actually, I'm gonna rename it to users instead of authentication. So it's gonna contain all the users API, and I'm gonna add a request for search user. Now inside of the URL, I'm gonna enter our variable for the URL and /API/user, and we're gonna add our query. Now notice, as we typed question mark over here, this got activated. If I write search over here, it's gonna detect that, okay, we are writing some params over here. Okay, awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna provide it multiple queries for now. I'm gonna say Piyush, and for writing one more query, we can write, and let's say last name equals Agarwal. Okay, I'm gonna send it. Now obviously nothing's gonna happen because we are not sending anything from there. But notice in our console, we got both of these queries over here, right? So this is how we're gonna access the query. So request.query.search. Now if we try to log the keyword, you're gonna notice if I try to send it, it's just gonna display search. What's going? Oops, SEARCH. Now if I send it, yep, you see Piyush over here. Awesome. So this is what we needed. So remove this console log, and now I'm gonna write some logic over here. So I'm gonna check if there's any query inside of it. So if there's any query inside of it, we're gonna search the user in their name and email. So there's a operator inside of MongoDB, which is OR operator. That means you need to fulfill either one of these requests. So let me show you. There it is. The OR operator performs a logical OR operation or array of two or more expressions. Right, so if either of these expressions is true, it's gonna return true, or whatever the result of these expressions is. Now inside of this, what I'm gonna write? Like this. So this means we are either searching inside the name or inside the email. If any of these queries match, then it's gonna return it. So inside of the name, we are using the regex to see if this query inside the search matches with the name of the user. And we are providing options to be the I. That means we want it to be case sensitive. So what is this regex? Let's go to the Chrome and search regex in MongoDB. So regex provides regular expression capabilities for pattern matching strings. So it helps us match the strings in MongoDB and helps us filter them. So as you can see, regex, and then we are supposed to provide the pattern and the options. So options can be many of the options. So just like we are using I for case insensitive to match uppercase and lowercase both. And we have other options as well. I would highly recommend you to go and read about them. So yep, if any of these conditions match, then it's gonna return it. Otherwise, what we're gonna do? So else, we're not gonna do anything. So that's all. So inside of it, now we have all of the search results. I mean, not now, we are supposed to provide this to our query of MongoDB. So I'm gonna go down and here I'm gonna query the database. So const users equals await user dot find. I'm gonna find these many users in the database. So I'm gonna provide this option of keyword. And then amongst those, I'm gonna find again. So we want all of the search results, but not the user that is currently logged in. So we accept that particular user. So what I'm gonna say inside of this find, I'm gonna say the current user that is signed in, I'm gonna say not equal to. So $NE not equals to request.user._ID. So this is the current ID of the user that is logged in. So I'm gonna say except this user, return me every other user that is the part of this search result. So all of this $NE, $regex, you can read more about all of these operators in MongoDB's official documentation. You just one Google search away. So awesome. After we have done this, I'm gonna return this. So response.send users. Great. Let's go and try this out. I'm gonna search P. I'm just gonna search P over here. Send. Cannot read properties undefined reading _ID. Okay. So there's one issue over here, which I forgot to do. So to get this request.user.id, we have to authorize the user that is currently logged in. And for doing that, we need user to log in and provide us the JSON web token. So let's remove this for now. And we're gonna try this without it. I'm gonna search it. And there you go. We have this array with all of these search results. So this is working absolutely fine. Now let's go back and create our authorization middleware. So I'm gonna keep this line over here for now and I'm gonna come back to this. So to authorize if the user is logged in or not, I'm gonna go inside of our middleware and create a new file, auth middleware.js. Now inside of this, I'm gonna import JWT, our user model and async handler. And below this, I'm gonna write the middleware for it. So I'm gonna quickly write the middleware and explain to you what I've done over here. So I've named this protect middleware and wrapped this inside of the async handler to handle all of the errors. And since it's a middleware, then it's gonna have request, response, and next to move on to the other operation. Now I'm gonna declare a token variable, and inside of this, whichever request comes. So how am I gonna use this middleware? So I'm gonna take this middleware and add it before this routes. Oh, right over here. Add it just like this and import this. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna have to go through this protect middleware before moving on to this all users request. So now what's gonna happen inside of that middleware? It's gonna check if request.headers.authorization. So in our request, we're gonna send the token inside of our headers of the request. So request.headers.authorization has something, and request.headers.authorization starts with the bearer. So the token will be a bearer token, which I'm gonna explain you in just a minute. So if these two conditions satisfy, we're gonna go inside of this. That means we have the token. Now we're gonna decode the token over here. So request.header.authorization split. So token will look something like this: bearer and then the token. Right. So I'm gonna split it and take the token. We're gonna remove the bearer and take the token from it. Now after we have taken the token, we are going to verify it. jwt.verify token, process.env.jwt underscore secret. If you remember, this is the variable that we had defined in our .env. So this will be decoded. Now we're going to define a user variable inside of this request object. So we're going to say await user.findById decoded.id. So we're going to find the user in our database and we're going to return it without the password. And after all of this operations has been done, we're going to say next to move on to the next operation. Otherwise, we're going to just throw the error. And if this condition is not satisfied, what we're going to say? If token is not there, we're going to say not authorized, not token. So this is how our middleware is going to work. So let's move back, and as you can see, I have provided this middleware over here and I have imported it as well. Now inside of this, since we have provided a request, a user variable inside the request object, so now this will check not equals to request.user.id. Okay, now let's try to log in. Okay, you see we have this token. Now I'm going to take this token, go inside the search user, and inside the authorization, I'm going to select bearer token and I'm going to provide the token over here. All right, now this should work. Let's go and search J. So since we are logged in as John, so it shouldn't give us John Doe back. So let's search. So only Jane Doe was returned, not John Doe. So this is how the search will work. If you have any confusion in understanding all of this stuff, don't worry. As we go along and build more of our app, you're going to understand all of these concepts clearly. Now let's go on and create the APIs for our chat creation. So I'm going to go inside the server.js and create a new API endpoint. app.use/API/chat. And I'm going to name it chat routes, and I'm going to make this chat routes now. So inside our routes, I'm going to create a new file, chatroutes.js. Now I'm going to import express and create the router object. Now let's discuss what are all the routes that we're going to make inside of this API endpoint. Router.route, and the first one will be the /route, which will be for accessing the chat or creating the chat. So I'm going to say post, and it's going to have the protect middleware. So if the user is not logged in, they cannot access this route. Only logged in user can access this route. And I'm going to name this access chat. So this is going to be our first route. Our second route is also going to be the /route, but it's going to be get. And it's going to get all of the chats from our database for that particular user. So fetch chats. So let's comment these out. Now the third route is going to be for creation of a group. So group, and it's going to be a post request. And again, it's going to have protect middleware, and I'm going to name this get group chat. Similarly, other one will be for renaming the group. So the group has been created, right? Now we're gonna rename a particular group. So I'm gonna name this rename, or we can, obviously you can name it anything, but I'm deciding to rename it rename. And since we are updating a particular entry from our database, so this is going to be a put request. That is, it's going to update it. And I'm gonna name this as rename group. Now after this, if you want to remove someone from the group or leave the group, we're gonna create a group request, and this is also going to be a put, and I'm gonna name it remove from group. And the last one is going to be group add, if you want to add someone to the group. So add to group. Awesome. So these are all the endpoints that we are going to work on. Let me export the router and let me import right over here. Just like this. Now let's start working on our access chat or chat creation route. So I'm gonna go inside the controllers and I'm gonna create a new file for chat controllers.js. And inside of this, I'm gonna create const access chat route, and it's going to be async handler. And inside of it, I'm gonna say an async function, and it's gonna have request comma response, just like we always do. Now, what are we gonna do inside of this? Now, this route is going to be responsible for creating or fetching a one-on-one chat. So what are we gonna do inside of this is we're gonna take the user ID with which we are going to create a chat. So current user, whoever is logged in, is going to send us the user ID. So request dot body, and body will contain const user ID. Now we are going to check if a chat with this user ID exists, then return it. But if it doesn't exist, then create a chat with this user ID. So first of all, we're gonna check over here if the user has sent us with this user ID. So if this is not available in our request, we're just gonna say user ID param not sent with the request, and we're gonna throw the error. Otherwise, we're gonna check if the chat exists with this user. So where is chat await chat dot find. Now I'm gonna import this chat model. So const chat equals require models slash chat model. Okay, now inside of the find, what we're gonna write is we're gonna write two things. So if we go inside the chat model, we can see we have is group chat field inside of it. So obviously if this is not a if this is a one-on-one chat, then it's going to be false. Okay, so I'm gonna say this whatever we are trying to find shouldn't be a good group chat. So is group chat has to be false in that field. And what are we trying to find? Both of the users. So the current user that is logged in and the user ID that we are provided with. So just like we used or previously, I'm gonna use and now. So in and is just opposite to or, that both of these requests have to be true. So I'm gonna say users, and users is the user array, that is this array right here. So I'm gonna check inside of this if both of these things are inside of it. So users, and I'm gonna match it. So $element match, it should match this particular ID. So it should be equal to request user underscore ID. Okay, so it should be equal to the current user that is logged in, or it should be equal to the user ID that we are sent. So user ID. So it should satisfy both of these conditions for chat to exist. Now after this, dot populate. So if the chat is found, populate the users array. So if we go back to our user model, chat model, we have this users array, right, which only contains the ID of the user, but we want more information for the user. So we're going to populate this with all of the user information. So I'm gonna say users, comma, and we don't want password. So accept password, return me anything. And again, I'm going to populate this. This time I'm gonna populate latest message, which is this thing. This is also containing only the ID. So we want all of the information related to this message. Now after this, inside of the last message, we have a sender field. So if we go inside of the message model, inside of the message model, we have a sender field as well, right? So we want to populate this as well. So don't worry, this is all going to make sense. We are going when we go on and try all of these APIs. So I'm gonna say is chat equals. So I'm gonna populate this thing as well, the sender field. So await user dot populate, and I'm gonna populate that user inside of this latest message. So it's gonna take two things. It's gonna take is chat, and I'm gonna provide it what we are looking to populate. So path is gonna be latest message dot sender, and what are we looking to populate inside of it? So we're gonna select name, picture, and email. That's all. Here inside of this we have all of the final data for our chat. Now we're gonna check if the chat exists. So if is chat dot length is more than 0. If it's more than 0, then response dot send is chat of the first one. So obviously it's going to be only one result in this array, and this is chat array. So we're gonna take the 0th index because no other chat can exist with these two users. Now else we will say, so if the chat exists, then we're just gonna send the chat. Otherwise we're gonna create a new chat with these two. So I'm gonna create the chat like this, where chat data, chat name sender, is group chat false, and the users array is going to have both of the users, the current logged in user and the user ID with which we are trying to create the chat. Now below this I'm gonna query it and store it in our database. So I'm gonna try catch const created chat to be await chat dot create, and we're going to provide the chat data. Cool. With this our chat is created, and after this we're going to take that chat which is just now created, and we're going to send it to our user. So I'm going to say const full chat to be await chat dot find one, and I'm gonna find the chat with the ID of this created chat. So I'm gonna take this and say underscore ID to be created chat dot ID. Underscore ID. And at the last we are going to populate the user array. So just like we did right over here. So I'm gonna copy this line and paste it. Cool. So there we go, and just at the last step we're gonna send it. Send. I'm gonna say response dot status to be 200, and I'm gonna send it. Full chat. Great. And now to handle our errors, I'm just gonna send whatever the error existed. Awesome. So this humongous controller is going to be our access chat controller. Now let's import it over here. Okay, access chat. Okay, we haven't yet exported this. So module dot exports to be access chat, and inside the chat routes I'm gonna import it. Awesome. Now let's go and test this out. Inside our postman I'm gonna create a new folder for our chats and add a request for create or access one-on-one chat. Cool. I'm gonna provide it with the URL /API/chat, and it's going to be a post request. Awesome. Now it's going to take the bearer token. So let me provide the bearer token. Where was the token? Yep, here it is. You know what? I'm gonna set this token as a variable. So I'm gonna click on set as variable, and I'm gonna say set as new variable token. Select a scope, global scope, and go inside of this. And instead of this, I'm gonna write token. Okay, this should work. Okay, so we're providing the token, and we are supposed to provide the user ID with which we are supposed to create a chat. So how do I get the user ID? Let's go over here. Okay, let's create the chat with Jane Doe. So I'm gonna take the Jane Doe's ID, and inside the body I'm gonna say raw JSON, and I'm gonna provide the user ID and provide the value to be this. Awesome, this should work. Let's check this out. Send. User is not defined. Okay, let's see. Inside of access chat, I think I forgot to import the user model somewhere here. Yep, just like this. Yep, it's imported. Now test this out. Send. There we go. Our new chat has been successfully created. Awesome. And you can see it's populating the users array and it's sending us with all of this information. If we hadn't written the populate function there, this would have sent just the user ID of both of these users. Awesome. Now if we try to access this again, notice the ID will be absolutely same because it's gonna send us the exact same chat. See, it sent us exact same chat for both of these users. Awesome. So we have successfully created the API for one-on-one chat. Now let's create an API for fetching all of the chats for that particular user. So over here, I'm gonna uncomment this out and let's create this fetch chats function. Okay, so I'm gonna just close this controller and right below this, I'm gonna say const fetch chats async handler asynchronous function with request response. Okay, now inside of it, I'm gonna say try catch. Now all we need to do over here is we just need to check which user is logged in and just query for that user all of the chats that are in the database. The chat dot find. Inside all of the chats, we are going to search inside the chat array. So if you go inside the chat model, you can see we have this chat array, right? So we're gonna go through all of the chats in our database and we're gonna return all of the chats that that particular user is a part of. Okay, so how are we gonna do that? I'm gonna say chat dot find, and inside the chat model we have users array, right? So inside the users array, just match this element. So element match equal to request dot user dot underscore id. So this is how we are going to find our chat. That's it. And now all that remains is just to populate all of the things that are returned from it. So you know what, I'm just gonna return it for now. I'm just gonna say dot then response dot send, result, and I'm gonna say response dot send to be result. Let's check this out. Let's find out if it's working. So inside of our postman, I'm gonna get a new request for fetching chats. It's gonna be same as this one. It's just going to be a get request, that's all. So yeah, that's all, and get request. And inside of the authorization, we are supposed to provide the bearer token. So yep, just bearer token, and token is already there. Okay, let's send this. What do we got? Not found. Okay, we haven't exported this. Inside of the chat routes, import this. Yep, just like that. Let's see if it works. Yep, you see, it's working absolutely fine. It returned us with this array the John Doe is part of. So it's part of just one chat. So there we go. Now we are supposed to populate this array and sort all of these chats according from new to old chats. Also, if it's a group chat, then we are also going to have a group admin field. So if we go here, so as you can see, we have a group admin field. So we are supposed to populate this as well. We are supposed to populate the latest message field as well. So let's populate all of these fields. So let me write down that quickly. I'm gonna remove this for now. I'm gonna populate all of those three things. First user, then the group admin, and then the latest message. Awesome. Now after all of these things are done, I'm gonna sort it from new to old. Sort with respect to updated at. Now after this, we are going to return it. But one more thing, if you remember in this, inside the latest chat, we also populated this thing as well. The latest message.sender. So we are going to copy this and we're going to do this as well. So I'm going to say dot then async. Whatever the result is, results equals async user.populate and not is chat. It's going to be results latest message sender. Yep, that looks good. And below this, I'm gonna finally return this to our user. So just like this. And we're gonna provide some catch like this, and I think this should be it. If you guys have any issues in this function, just comment down below and ask me. Don't hesitate to ask. I'm sure me or someone else will reply to you. Let's send this again, and you're gonna notice, yep, you see users is populated now. And since we don't have a group admin or latest message field right now, so we can't see that. Okay, awesome. Let's work on another route, which is going to be create group chat route. Now I'm going to take this and go back to chats controllers. Const chat, async handler, async, just like you see. Request response. Also, I'm going to put it over here right away so that I don't forget, and import it. Cool. Now let's go on and create this. So it's going to be fairly easy. What we're going to do is we're going to take a bunch of users from the body, and we're gonna take the name of the group chat. That's all, right? So if we go inside of our original app, let's say roadsidecoder@example.com, login, and click on new group chat, you're gonna see that it requires us the chat name and all of the users which we can add it. So we can search a user and we can add them to our group. So it's gonna take an array of users and the name of the group. Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna check if the request.body.users doesn't have anything or request.body.name doesn't have anything. We're gonna say please fill all the fields. Simple. Otherwise, we're just gonna take all of the users from our request.body and we're gonna parse it. So we're gonna send an array, right? So we can't just send array directly. We need to send it in the stringify format. So we are going to send it in the stringify format from our front end, and in our back end we are going to parse that stringify into an object. Cool. Now there's one more constant. We're gonna check a group should have more than 2 users. So I'm gonna say if the users.length is less than 2, then we're gonna throw the error. More than 2 users are required to form a group chat. Yeah, I guess that's self-explanatory. So we're gonna send all of those users, and so if you notice over here when we are creating the new chat, so we are adding all of these people inside of this group chat. So all of these people along with the currently logged in user. So I am currently logged in, right? So this user along with all of these users will be a part of group chat. So all of these users plus I'm gonna add request.user, that is current user that is logged in. After that is done, after the users array has been created, I'm just gonna create a new request or query to our database. So try catch. I'm gonna say const group chat equals await chat dot create. I'm gonna create a new chat, and the chat will have following things. It's gonna have the chat name, which is going to be request.body.name that we send. It's gonna have users. It's gonna have if it's a group chat or not, and it's gonna have the group admin field. Group admin will be us because we are the ones who are creating the group. Cool, that's done. And after this, we are going to fetch this group chat from our database and we're going to send it back to our user. So let me write the query for that. So just like previously, it's nothing new. Just like we created a chat and fetched the chat again to send to the user. So that's all I'm doing over here. So just await chat.find1 and the ID of this group chat that is created, and just populated with the users and group admin. And that is all, I guess. Yep. And let's create for the catch field just like this. Now let's go and try this out. So this I've already imported it over. So this is /group. So I'm gonna go inside our postman, create a new request, create a group. Cool. So it's URL /API/chat/group, and this is going to be a post request. So I'm going to say post, and what are all the things that it takes? First of all, it's going to take a bearer token for the current user. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to provide it JSON, and it's going to take the name, I believe. Yep. So I'm going to name this, let's say test group, and it's going to have users, and we're going to need a bunch of users. So let's go to search user, and let's take a bunch of IDs. So let's take this ID, our console of the browser, and I'm just gonna say json dot stringify, and I'm gonna provide this with an array of this first ID, and the second ID will be, let's say I'm gonna take it from Jane Doe, or yep, that's fine. I'm gonna take this ID and let's enter it. So this is what we get as a stringified version of this thing. Let's copy this up and provide it to our creator group. Double quotes. Okay, hopefully everything works fine. Let's check this out. What's wrong over here? Let's try to Google JSON to stringify something. There must be some website for this. Let's see, stringify JSON. Okay, let's enter the JSON. Okay, we got this. Let's take this. Hopefully this will work. Let's remove this and enter this. Okay, wow, awesome. We were supposed to add these slashes over here. Okay, cool. Let's send this. And here we go. Oh, awesome. We have successfully created a new group chat with these three users, right? With this user, and the current user that is logged in, that is John Doe. So, and you can also see the group admin over here. And awesome, guys, we have successfully created a group chat. Congratulations. I need you to like this video right now, because I know you have learned a lot in this video and you're excited for what's about to come next. Cool, let's go back to our VS Code and create our next route, which is rename group route. So if we go to Postman, we can see the group name is test group. Awesome. And let's go and create the controller for it. So I'm gonna close this up, and below this, const rename group. And this is going to be an easy API. So inside of this, I'm just gonna take the chat ID which we are looking to rename and the new name which we are looking to give. So from the request.body, we're gonna take chat ID and chat name. Now after this, I'm gonna say const updated chat await chat dot find by ID and update. So this is the function that we're gonna use. We're gonna find it by ID and update it right away. So what are we supposed to find? So we're gonna give the chat ID. And what are we supposed to update? We are supposed to update the chat name to the new name, which is chat name. Since the key and value are same, I can just remove that. After this, I'm gonna say new to true. If I don't give this, it's gonna just return as the old name of that group. But since we are putting new to the true, it's gonna return as the updated value of it. Cool. And after this, just like we always do, we're gonna populate the users and the group admin. Now simply, we're gonna just check for the errors. If there's nothing inside of the updated chat, send the errors. Otherwise, send the response.json. That's all. Let's export this. Rename group. I import it here. Just like that. And test it out in our Postman. I'm gonna create a new request here for rename the group. Enter the URL /API/chat, and what was it? It was a put request. So I'm gonna say put, and it was /rename. Inside the authorization, we are supposed to provide the bearer token, and inside the body, we're just gonna provide two things. So first thing will be the chat ID, and the other thing will be the chat name. Cool. Let's get both of these things. So the new group that we had created, I'm gonna take the ID, and I'll name it test group updated. Cool. I think this should work. Let's find out. Let's send this, and here we go, test group updated. Awesome. Let's move further to remove from the group. Let's first create the add to group, then we're gonna create the remove from group. So add to group, I'm gonna go back to chat controllers, I'm gonna close this one. Okay, now we're gonna need two things. First, the chat ID which we are supposed to add the user to, and the particular user that we are going to add to that particular chat. So now after this, what we're gonna do, we're gonna say const added to be chat dot find by ID and update. Inside this, we're gonna provide the chat ID. And what are we supposed to update? We are supposed to update the users array. So I'm gonna push inside of the users array that particular user ID that we are supposed to push. And we're gonna say new to true to return the latest field. Oops, I mean not here, over here. Yeah, just like this. And after the user has been successfully added, I'm gonna populate it just like previously, just like this. And then I'm gonna check for the errors. If added doesn't have anything, chat not found. Otherwise, send the data. That was add to group. And you know what? I'm gonna create the remove from group as well, and then we're gonna go ahead and test both of these out. So let me import this, and let's create the remove from group as well. So it's just gonna be similar to this one. So I'm gonna just copy it up, and I'll say remove from. And the only thing that is going to be changed is instead of this push, I'm gonna say pull. And let's rename this added to removed. And I'm gonna export it. And let's import it. Yep. Now let's test both of these out. Inside the Postman, I'm gonna create a new request. Add user to group. I have the chat / add to group, and this was going to be a put request. Yep. So put inside the authorization bearer token, and inside the body we are going to have two things. This is going to be the chat ID and the user ID, I believe. Yep, user ID. And let's create a new user and add it to our group. I'm gonna create a demo user, or let's say guest user, guest at example.com, and password with this. Let's send this. Cool. Let's take this ID and let's add this user. Let's send this. Oh, something really went wrong. What was it? Okay, I think I'm supposed to keep this await, but I don't know if that's the error or not. Okay, let's see. Let's test this out. Yep, that was the particular error. Okay, so let's see 1, 2, 3, and 4th user. Okay, all of the users have been added to the group. Now let's try to remove a user. So I'm create a new request. Remove user from group. And it's going to be similar to this. It's just going to be, I think, group remove. Yeah, group remove, and all the body and etc. is going to be similar. I'm gonna remove the guest user from it. Authorization is going to be bearer token, and this is going to be a put request. Let's test it out. Send. Oh, again, I think we are supposed to put await there. Await, send, and let's see, guest user has been removed from the group. Awesome. So we have successfully created all of these chat endpoint. That was a lot of work. So like this video if you like what you built in this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel with bell notification turned on. And if you're not yet following this playlist, click the link in the description below and access the complete playlist, and you can find the source code of this complete playlist in the description as well. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.